Every egg carton in your fridge represents a decision made about an animal you'll never see, never hear about, and we're probably never meant to think about at all. Not the hen who laid it, her brother. Somewhere in a hatchery on the exact same day that hen hatched, roughly an equal number of male chicks hatched right alongside her, sharing the same incubator, the same warmth, the same first few minutes of life. Statistically, about half of every batch that comes out of the egg. And within hours, sometimes minutes, almost all of those male chicks were killed, not raised, not sold as meat. Killed on day one before they ever grew a single feather worth eating, before they did anything at all except hatch as the wrong sex. The obvious question is the one most people never actually stop and ask: why not just raise them for meat instead? The same way every other rooster ends up on someone's plate eventually. A chicken is a chicken, at least as far as most people assume. Surely a male one still has a body full of edible muscle, same as any other bird you'd find on a dinner plate anywhere in the world. That assumption is the whole problem, and it's almost entirely wrong. Modern industrial chickens aren't one single animal quietly doing two different jobs at once. They're two completely different products, bred down two separate genetic paths for roughly a century, until the birds themselves stopped being interchangeable in any practical sense at all. Egg-laying breeds, birds like the white leghorn, selectively bred for generation after generation purely to produce as many eggs as biologically possible, were never optimized to put on muscle. Their bodies are lean, small-framed, built around the reproductive system, not the breast. Meat chickens are the opposite extreme. Breeds like the Cornish cross were bred with equal obsession, but for a completely different trait: raw growth speed. A modern broiler chicken can go from a day-old chick to slaughter weight in around 6 weeks, a rate of growth so extreme that, left to live longer, many broilers develop leg and heart problems just from carrying their own rapidly built mass. This split didn't happen by accident, and it didn't happen gradually either. In 1948, a competition in the United States called the Chicken of Tomorrow contest set out, quite deliberately, to breed a bird that grew faster and meatier than anything that existed at the time. Breeders across the country entered their best lines. Judges measured growth rate and breast size like a livestock beauty pageant, and the winning bloodlines became the genetic foundation of nearly every broiler chicken raised today. From that point on, meat chickens and egg chickens weren't drifting apart slowly through independent selection. They were engineered apart on purpose within the space of a few decades. So when a male chick hatches from an egg-laying breed, he inherits the worst of both worlds for a meat producer looking at a spreadsheet, not an animal. He doesn't lay eggs, obviously that part's not in dispute. And because his genetics were selected purely for egg output over roughly 100 generations of breeding, he also grows slowly, stays lean and small-breasted, and would need roughly 3 times as long, eating 3 times as much feed, to reach a fraction of the size a broiler reaches on its own fast-engineered schedule. Raising him for meat isn't biologically impossible, not in the sense that it couldn't be done at all. It's just economically absurd at industrial scale, feeding an animal for months to eventually get less usable meat than a broiler produces in a matter of weeks. Multiply that math across the entire global egg industry, and the number gets enormous fast, in a way that's genuinely hard to picture as individual animals rather than a statistic. Roughly 6 to 7 billion male chicks are culled worldwide every single year, almost all of them within 24 hours of hatching, using methods the industry itself classifies as fast high-speed grinding or exposure to inert gas, chosen specifically because slower, more drawn-out methods were considered worse for the animal, not because either option is easy for anyone outside the industry to think about clearly. Here's the twist buried in all of this. The premise of the question is actually false. You do eat male chicken, constantly without ever thinking about it. Broiler flocks, the birds raised specifically for meat, are typically not sex-selected at all. Roughly half of every chicken breast, thigh, and wing you've ever eaten in your life came from a male bird. No different in principle from any female broiler on the same farm. The male chickens that get discarded at hatcheries aren't discarded for being male. They're discarded for being the wrong kind of male, born into a genetic line engineered exclusively for egg production, with a body that has nothing whatsoever to offer an industry measured entirely in pounds of meat produced per week of feed, which reframes the real question entirely. It was never really, why don't we eat male chickens to begin with? It's closer to, why did we breed two entirely separate animals out of the same original species? so specialized in opposite directions that one of them became economically worthless the instant it turned out to be the wrong sex? That question does have people working on an answer, just not the one you might expect. Since the early 2020s, a handful of countries, Germany and France among the first, have moved to ban chick culling outright, not by changing what happens to male chicks after they hatch, but by preventing the question from ever coming up in the first place. New in-ovo sexing technology can now determine a chick embryo's sex days before hatching, using a small fluid sample drawn from the egg itself and analyzed for hormone markers, allowing hatcheries to identify male eggs and remove them from the incubator before there's a chick developed enough inside to feel anything at all. Some versions of the technology work even earlier, scanning the egg for tiny visual or chemical signals well before the embryo has developed a nervous system, which manufacturers present as the ethically decisive detail that removing the egg early sidesteps the welfare questions surrounding culling entirely rather than just relocating it. It doesn't solve the underlying economics. Egg-laying breeds are still worthless as meat, and broilers are still bred for 6-week slaughter weights that would be biologically unthinkable in almost any other farmed animal alive today. It just moves the discarding a few days earlier, out of a hatchery floor and into an egg that never gets the chance to hatch in the first place, swapping one uncomfortable image for a slightly less visible one. Whether that counts as a real solution or just a more comfortable place to look away from the exact same math depends entirely on which part of the process you personally think the actual problem was: the killing itself, or simply the fact that anyone had to watch it happen.